Good evening, everybody. It's Lilias, Ahmeira, your holistic practitioner, once more on this Monday evening. And tonight I thought we'd talk about gluten. It is that hot topic that everybody talks about, and it is so important that you really understand the ramifications of eating all of these breads and flours and all the things that we love to eat that are generally filled with sugar and taste so good that make us feel so absolutely rotten at the end of the day. So, gluten. Where do we find it? Remember the word browse. Barley, rye, oats, wheat, spelt. These are the main grains that contain gluten and that can cause so many problems within your life. The thing to remember about gluten is basically it is a highly toxic protein, and it is toxic for every single person who eats it. They may or may not be aware of the reaction they have to it, but nevertheless it is. We started eating grains about 3,000 years ago, and even today our bodies still have not got used to it. And the trouble with this is that the grain that we eat today is incredibly different from the grain that we ate 100 years ago. It's been hybridized. The food manufacturers realized that if they could create a grain that has more of that sort of gooey, sticky stuff, think about a stick of French bread, and it's just like, it tastes so good. You just want to put a slab of butter on it and go, hell, nobody else is looking. I'm just going to finish the stick. And the reason that you have those feelings is because it's been hybridized to create something called zonulin. And zonulin is like a brain enhancer. And what zonulin does is it gets you very excited in the brain, so you want more. It's a bit like Coca-Cola or any of these addictive things. And the food manufacturers realized that if they put this or created more of this in the bread, then basically you would not just stop at one piece of toast, you'd want to have three. And with lashings of butter and what have you, fresh loaf of bread, why not? It's absolutely delicious, but it has consequences. And this is the consequences I thought I would explain. One of the things that zonulin does is it loosens what are called tight junctions. So they're the cells in your stomach. So if you can imagine your stomach should be a watertight bag and not going anywhere. And the zonulin loosens the tight junctions. So those are the cells within the stomach bag, so that undigested proteins can disappear out into the bloodstream. And at that point, the gluten turns into an opiate and it becomes something called glutamorphine. And that is the high that when it hits your brain, you go, oh my God, give me another piece of bread, give me another, bit of biscuit or whatever it is, because suddenly your brain is getting very excited about this and thinks it's just terrific. And then after you've had the hit and it feels great, and you've had the whole French stick of bread, you sit down on the sofa and a few hours later go, do you know what, I can't move. And the undigested proteins that have turned into glutamorphine have now turned into sludge and have been dumped into your lymph system. And that's the I can't get off the sofa feeling. And this creates a bigger problem, because not only have you now got leaky guts and your stomach and around that area is sort of like a sieve, it does the same thing for your blood-brain barrier. Your brain becomes leaky too. And your blood-brain barrier is there to protect your brain from viruses, bacteria, parasites. And if you are going to be eating lots and lots of gluten, then you are going to be making your brain leaky as well. And that feeling of brain fog, of did I lock the front door, and I just can't get it together, and what is that word, and what was that person called? Exciting things happen when it's live. There you go. So, where was I? I was talking about, yes, leaky brain. So basically, if you want to protect your brain, stay away from the gluten. That brain fog is a classic symptom of the fact that your brain is basically inflamed. It can't cope with the gluten. And until the gluten is kind of passed out of your system, will be the time at which you probably start to get your brain back, which most people don't realize. They keep eating sandwiches and bread and all of those things. So it's a vicious circle. So that is a little bit about zonulin. Now, the other aspect of it is that if you have lots of gluten and you start bloating a lot and then you start getting an upset stomach, it may be because the gluten is affecting something else in your small intestine. Zonulin likes to attach itself to lectins, and lectins are a plant's natural defense against insects. So when you have a small intestinal problem, which is quite often called SIBO, and you eat lectins, they will attach themselves to the gluten or be attracted by the gluten, and the whole thing becomes more and more inflamed. And most people notice that when they bloat a lot when they eat foods, if they cut out the gluten and they cut out the lectins, then they bloat less and they feel a lot more comfortable. So lectins and gluten very much exacerbate small intestinal problems, so look out for that one. The other thing about gluten is it can create neurotoxicity in the brain, and that can have devastating reactions, because people who have autoimmune disorders don't realise it, but they can be cross-reactive to foods, and gluten is one of those big ones. So if you've got thyroid problems, for example, you'll find that when you ingest gluten, the body goes, oh my goodness, I don't know what to do with this. I'm just going to send antibodies and destroy everything that looks like gluten. And the trouble is the makeup of your thyroid and the protein chains are very similar to your thyroid. So not only is the body going after the gluten, but because aspects of your thyroid makeup, biochemical makeup, is very similar to gluten, it's then going to start to attack the thyroid. And this is why you start to get autoimmune disorders. And with any autoimmune disorder, when you start cutting out gluten, you'll find that many of these conditions will improve dramatically. So that's something to consider. Also, diabetes is very much another one directly associated with gluten as being a problem. So just if there's anything autoimmune in your family, get off the gluten. Look and see how you can feel better. So things like ADHD, autism, Hashimoto's, a lot of skin conditions, ALS, all of these things may be contributed in the unpleasant side effects by gluten. So the bottom line is, why don't you try and see how you feel without it? Try a week, go for a month. You'll probably find you'll drop some weight. You'll feel a lot more clearer in your head. You'll have more energy. You may sleep better. Don't you think it's worth a try? Have a go. Let me know how you go. I would love to hear, and because it can be absolutely life-changing with some people. So that's it for this evening. All about gluten. Very quick synopsis on it. If I can be of any help to you, do get in touch at liliasahmeira.com. That's Lilias, AHM for mother, EIRA.com. And remember, whatever you're going through, there is always a solution. And if you come and bang on my door and send me an email, I will do my very best to try and sort out what's going on with you. Have a smashing evening. Many thanks. Good night.